watching Conversations in Pop Culture. And yes, I am scandalous like an Ashley. And I have with me trading card and comic creator RJ Williams. So welcome to the show.
Hey Andrew, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm excited because obviously I'm a trading card guy. Anybody who knows me, I like collecting, buying, selling trading cards, which I will plug at the very end what I got. And I got some cool cards to show off / tell you what's in my store, everybody. But that's just towards the end with my eBay store and everything of that nature. But obviously, I'm excited to have you on because you got a lot of stuff going on with a trading card that's on Fund My Comic right now, as well as you do have a comic book that's being made. But before we get into both of those things, why don't we kind of talk a little about who you are? Because you're not just coming into comics raw. There's some interesting little facts that you've done before. You obviously are in EMS, firefighting, and that stuff, which is your shoot job. Hopefully, I didn't out you. Hopefully, if I did, I'm sorry. But it's a noble profession. It's a noble profession. So,
oh, thank you. No, you didn't dox me or anything. People still got to find out where I am.
Yeah, hopefully I didn't dox you.
You know what would be the coolest thing though? If I were out there in the world one day and then someone's like, "Hey, you're RJ,"
you'd be like, "I know, I just saved your life." You'd be like, you like resuscitate them, and they're like, "I know who you are. You did that trading card."
Yeah.
By the way, I didn't get mine. Could you?
Yeah.
No, but all jokes aside, obviously, who are you for those who don't know? And everything of that nature before we get into the trading card and the comic, because you have an artistic background.
I do. Yeah, I've been writing fiction just kind of as a hobby for a long time. It's kind of my outlet. Also, happen to be friends with Lisa Foyles, who's the featured person in my trading card. You may know her from All That and Malcolm in the Middle. It was actually her idea. She read a story of mine and said it kind of lends itself to animated form. So then I went ahead and I tried to learn how to write a comic book. And in the process, started following artists, kind of came across Luke Stone on Twix, sometimes Twitter, sometimes X, left tricks, white tricks. I started talking to Luke Stone. He's now my artist, which is great because I think he's an excellent sequential artist. And in the process of talking to all these artists on Twitter, I learned that I happen to live by Mike Barron. And he is started talking to Mike Barron. He agreed to be my editor. So he's actually the editor for this comic book as well.
So let's talk about the book then. So we'll start with the book. So it's call sign Orin, I think it is. Orion. Mm-hmm. My bad there. Okay. But so what is the story? Because you're in the process of writing it, getting the art for it. I don't think you have a Kickstarter or a Fund My Comic or an Indiegogo or anything of that nature out yet built for it, because I think you're developing it. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you want to at least have some pages done, if not the whole book done, before you release it. But what's the concept? What's the story? And what's all that stuff? Because I know you're updating people, I think, on your Substack, but there's people who are saying, never heard of this book before. So, but it sounds interesting.
Yeah. So the setting, it's basically all the types of sci-fi that I love, because I'm a longtime sci-fi fan. Started with Star Wars, which I learned as an adult as science fantasy. As a kid, you don't care. It's just it's a fun story in space. And yeah, I kind of incorporated a little bit of Battlestar Galactica, Starship Troopers, Brave New World, just all the dystopian, all the sci-fi that I love. Kind of threw it all into one thing. So the setting is basically 1,000 years in the future. We've populated other planets, terraformed other planets. People have like changed based on living conditions and all that kind of good stuff. Earth has become like an expansionist kind of empire, and there's a lot of different factions going on. And the main character is the leader of what's basically Earth's version of the Navy SEALs. They're called the Alphas, and his name is Orion, or at least that's his call sign. It's not his real name. You got to buy the book to find out more of his backstory, though. Right now I'm holding actually a pop socket. If you subscribe to the Substack, you'll get a free one of these. Just got to reply to the email with your address, and I'll send you a free Orion pop socket. This guy's the original drawing of JP7 art over on Twitter. I don't know if you can see how shiny it is. It's pretty neat. Everyone's been a satisfied customer so far, so go and subscribe to the Substack.
Let's talk about this a little bit, because obviously there is, and I'm going to take a leap of faith here, there is a war going on, or conflict is happening in this book, and people are vying for power, is the sense I get. If I'm off base, tell me if I'm off base. I don't think I am, but
that's basically it. That's basically it. In this issue, there's a hostage situation. One of the hostages happens to be Orion's love interest, Diana, and kind of raises the stakes. I do have some pages complete, by the way. I've got actually a sample print right here, and you'll see these pages. This is kind of the more glossy version. You'll see these pages over on my Substack, or at least some of them. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll see these same pages. I don't know how well you can see that right there. And then over here, more pages. I got the fighter jets, the F-26 Aerostar there. They're in the space battle. And then some action there and some panels.
So to go further into this, because obviously you're building it out, and you're doing something that's, I think, is interesting, at least, is that you're releasing parts of it on Substack, and you're talking, I guess, about releasing some of the art, giving props to the story, giving ideas of what's going on, and I guess also testing and seeing what maybe is and isn't working necessarily on social media, and engaging on social media, because it's tricky at this point, I feel, in comics, more so in comics than anything else, is building an audience, maintaining an audience, understanding what your audience is, your core audience, and then also saying, cool, how much money are they willing to spend? And this isn't just a comic problem. It's in every problem. You know, the grocery store still has this problem, and you have this problem. But in comics, especially on an indie level, you know, you have to do all that work with no budget to do research. And so what is it like to figure all this out? Because Substack does grant you a lot of data. So does YouTube, so does Facebook, and it's very helpful. I mean, I know this because I've gone through my YouTube data, and I know the videos that hit home runs, and I know the videos that don't. But I also know where to put a video that's going to suck next to a superstar video, and it props up that not shitty video, but a video that is definitely vanilla, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, that's basically what I've done. For almost as long as I've been following people on Twitter, I've been trying to kind of build my own audience. And like you said, YouTube, great data. Same with Substack, same with everything else. It helps let you know what demographic is following you and like what topics they'll follow you for. I've not been able to make really heads or tails of everything that happens on YouTube. It seems like sometimes I'll make a video that I think is just kind of dumb, and a lot of people, like, I'll get thousands of views sometimes. Other times I'll do something that I'm a little more passionate about, and like no one watches it. So it's funny that way.
Let's talk about that a little bit too, because and even relating it back to comics, I mean, I have a different approach on YouTube, social media, my audience, where I just push out content, because I am building out content for the next 30 years. And I take a Netflix, Peacock, Disney approach, where I go to the idea where you need as much content as you possibly can. So I know comic creators who are pushing out 1, 2, 3 books every single month. And they're really trying to build out a library, but they're not making any money. But I don't necessarily know if comics in your first year, or even in your first 5 years, if you have a longevity plan, if you need to make money. I think you need to be able to sustain your growth, but I think it's a tech company. And I've also heard people say, I want to go and I want to be able to self-fund this, and I don't want to be pinched to the T every single month and be dropped 12 grand every month and have a huge burn rate. And even though I'm bringing in money, I don't want the stress. And then what if a campaign fails? Do I shoot, move on? Like, shoot, move, kill, and move on? Like, is
Mm-hmm.
that what you do? Like, so because I think that's what's interesting. So with YouTube, I have the same results where I have a video that's done 25,000 views, and then I have a video that's done 4,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't care because
Right.
it's just play. Because that video that does 4, 5 years from now, it's going to have 1,000 views.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, I'm curious how you even process that, because do you feel that that's an issue in comics right now, where sometimes you need to just produce your book, you don't need to necessarily
Mm-hmm.
worry about what it's going to do? Because I think that that's a big problem right now in comics, is figuring
Mm-hmm.
out that balance.
It is. So one thing I've learned about YouTube, um, say I get a video that gets like hundreds of views, 1,000 views, whatever. Um, I don't get as much interaction. Like if I do like a live stream on someone's channel, I'll get maybe more likes and shares if it's like the right 10 people watching, and then those 10 people will go subscribe to my Substack, which tells me they're more likely to back the book. I think it's about finding the right people. I mean, obviously you want lots of people, but sometimes you have to engage with the right people, because the hundreds of people that watch my funny video about the X-Men aren't necessarily going to back my book when it comes out.
See, it's interesting. So I obviously, on my eBay store, I'm targeting a specific client.
Mm.
Now I target 2 ends of the spectrum. I want to sell high-end cards, because when I'm selling a $200 card for $800, it's a huge payoff. It's a 4x, and I'm making good money. But I also want to target somebody who can only afford an $8 card, and I want to find that happy medium where I will want to sell a lot of $8 cards, and the majority of my sales are $8 to $9 sales. And it's great because I'm shipping 400 or 500 of them, and it's a lot of money. And when you're buying at wholesale, which is, 60, 70% off, you're making decent amount of money, and especially when you're selling a lot of them. But I also want to sell those big things, because I want to get those big clients on the hook, so that when they're looking for that card, they come to me. Or I have clients now ask me to say, can you get this card when it comes out? So
I'm doing a similar approach with this trade card, for example. So the lowest tier, I got the card right here for those who haven't seen it, by the way. I might as well flash it and show it off. So this is Lena Riley. She's basically my equivalent of April O'Neil. She's a news reporter for Earth in the Future, for Earth's Ministry of Truth. And she's based on my friend and real media personality, Lisa Foyles. She'll be helping promote it. She's got a busy road schedule with her band, doing the residency in Vegas and everything, and for all that reunions. SplatCon, she'll be there pretty soon.
So we're gonna talk about the card. Don't worry, I promise. We're gonna talk about the card.
I just thought I'd show it off. Grab the little things that I've already got.
But this is interesting, because Tyler Carpenter talks about funnels. And he talks a lot about this, and I like funnels. I recommended Russell Brunson's book, all 3 of them, which talk about funnels. Hook, Story, Offer. Kickstarter is a gigantic funnel. By definition, Fund My Comic is a funnel. It's just a clean looking funnel with a open landing page with several exits into whatever reward you want. And it's great. But you mentioned about YouTube. So obviously I want to lead people. So YouTube for me and my interview show is a self-contained product, but it obviously has exits outward. But it also gives me insight, and it's a research arm for my eBay business, that because whenever you speak to enough people, you're going to find and get tidbits of information, and it's like Velcro. I had a professor, Paul Levitz, explain that a good writer's mind is like Velcro. And for those who don't know who Paul Levitz is, he ran DC Comics for 12 years. So very important person to know. But very, very interesting class, writing for the media. Fascinating class. But the point I'm making is that what is that like? Because that, I think, is also where a lot of people in comics fail too, is that you don't necessarily need to have a show, but you need to have some methodology of directing people to where you want them to go to back your book. Because because I don't think anymore that you can just put a project up on Kickstarter, Zoop, Fund My Comic, and expect to be funded with your goal by yourself.
Yeah.
I think those days are long gone.
Yeah.
And I think people need to have a real understanding. Are you going to use Facebook ads? Are you going to use YouTube? Are you using interviews? Are you going to use other people? Or are you just going to post relentlessly with awesome things that attract people's attention? Like there are pictures that get people interested. Or are you going to use a fun, sexy title? I mean, you know, I'm trying to think of a book that you had to buy because of the title. I can't think of something off the top of my head. I got one, a novel, Razor Girl. Razor Girl. You're like, okay, cool. What is this story about, right? Or Ready Player One is another good example. You're like, okay, Ready Player One, great title, and it makes you say, cool. What is this book about? Great book. The title definitely helped. Is the point. So I'm curious how you feel about that, because I think you're touching upon something that is necessary. And also, if you have 10,000 people liking a YouTube stream of yours or watching it live or on the back end or when it's on replay or published, naturally you're going to narrow down your position. And even if you only get 20 people on your Substack, you know, you just got 20 people who are now potential buyers.
Right. Yeah, I just think it's about everyone's got to build their audience. Everyone's got to have their thing. I think part of that is a face and a personality to relate to, kind of build your brand. One thing Lisa talks about with her brand, she just learned recently from it was like a producer or a brand manager was talking to her. She's like, yeah, we don't know how to market you. You're all over the place. You got this metal band, but you're also like this pretty girl. And like, what is it you do? You're funny. You do comedy though. And you also write stuff. Like, what do you do? So you got to kind of have a brand. Right now, I'm kind of mostly in the Fund My Comic crowd, people who are other indie creators mostly. And not that I'm taking their customers, but I'm in that bubble, in that world, just trying to make myself known to the people who back those kinds of projects. Let me ask you this.
So I actually, so I'm curious because I stopped promoting on Facebook heavily.
Doesn't mean on Facebook.
What?
It seems like no one's on Facebook as bots.
So the reason why I stopped is that I'm an interview show, and you know I'm pushing into all these groups that other creators are there, and I don't think that they want to support a show necessarily to watch it, and so I just get the sense that that's not where the audience is, right? And what I found out, and then part of how I started growing on YouTube, is I started actually producing content and started really building out my YouTube community page. And effectively, I started tagging appropriately. And I said, cool, if I am a fan of a voice actor, what tag is going to get my person to this interview effectively? And what tag and what videos is this going to be tagged that'll get a video recommendation? And so I started thinking very different and started thinking fan-centric. And so I don't think that necessarily these Facebook groups are fan-centric. And this is my problem, is that I want to be fan-centric because my fans are what are the views. And then it's the same thing when I'm selling somebody a high-end collectible. You know, most likely they're not another creator. They're a fan of the product. So I have to think of it that way, where I'm selling a lot of sports cards. And so I just sold a New York Mets card, and they're in the postseason. Guy's a fan of Francisco Lindor. So I should not be targeting a baseball member. Actually, that's not true. I should probably target a baseball memorabilia group. That's a bad example. But I shouldn't be targeting a Major League Baseball fantasy group, is the point. So, like, I'm curious how you feel about that, because once you start becoming tribal, I don't know if that's good for business.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of both, and I think because I reach out to a lot of those same groups and talk to I do want to reach fans. I want to reach as many people as possible, but obviously fans are going to be more viable for a business. Um, but not all. It's like if you think of it as a Venn diagram, I think there is definitely an overlap between like the community of creators who support each other on Kickstarter, on Fund My Comic, whatever it is. And then the fans, and then there's fans who back comic books and create comic books. Trying to hit all those bases, I guess.
No, I get it. In which that I'm not anti that either, but I really say, cool. Who are my fans? And I start with the biggest group first, and I also start with the lowest hanging fruit first. And this is why I think this is interesting. So, like, I think your Substack is fascinating. I think it's actually a very interesting, end result on the end funnel. And I think that's fascinating because I also think it's interesting when you start talking about this is where we are at with the comic and this is where we're going with it, because I also think it's honesty to some degree, and I think it keeps you honest. Because let's say that you're 8 pages in and you're releasing previews and things, and then you take a left turn in your book. I'm like, I don't like this anymore. I now know what I can expect. And I think that's another problem in comics. And I think that your whole Substack with this book and your journey of it is really interesting to that degree, because at least it's telling me, hey, this is a military fighting type book with a slight love interest in there, but it's not a romantic comedy.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure there's some romantic elements and some funny things that are going to be in this comic book at some point, but this isn't, how to lose a guy in 10 days.
Yeah.
As much as I enjoy that movie, as everybody else did, it's not that movie. And I think that's a problem, though, also in comics, because I don't know how many projects you backed on Kickstarter from my comic, but there's about 10 that I'm like, I love the name of your book. I love how you described it. I open it up, and within 10 pages, I'm like, this is completely different than what I just was sold.
Yeah. You don't want that. Sorry.
Especially when you just spend $30 for a book.
Yeah, that's a lot to spend for a book. And like you said, you want those you want the volume of the less expensive product, but also the people are going to spend more money on the bigger product. I don't know if I mentioned it when we were on that subject. I'm trying to do kind of a similar strategy on Fund My Comic for the campaign, for the trade card campaign. Because if you spend like $10, you just get the card. I did. Sorry.
We'll talk about the trading card because.
Anyway, just as the tiers and business model sort of thing you were talking about, like $30, that just got my head back in there. Whereas you were saying like $30 for a book, and then it's not what you expected by page 10, which for a comic book, depending on how long it is, that's a big chunk of the book, and then you're like disappointed at some point.
There was a book, and I tell this story, and he's a friend of mine. The character, she's a complete bitch, okay, and she's had a hard life, and this woman lost her son, and she's a complete bitch. There's another word, but I'm not going to use it. Okay, we all know what word I'm referring to. But I get it. I didn't need 20 pages of her being a complete bitch. Okay,
right.
I needed 5.
That's why I get an editor, by the way.
So, and the book was done somewhat beautiful, but I'm like, great. And so I backed issue 1. It was $20. I said, cool, I'll go for another issue. I backed issue 2. And after that, I'm like, okay, finally, we're now getting to the heart of the story. And we're getting to where we should have been by page 16 in issue 1. So we are legitly 64 pages in a book, just getting to it. And I said, I can't do this anymore, because if this is the pace of this book, we will get 2 issues. There should have been a 2-issue story over 6 issues, in which I didn't need all the extra at $40. Now, if you were to sell it to me for $30 for 6 issues and you wanted to give me all the extras, that's one thing. But not $120.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot.
And that's what it was coming down to. And I just said, I appreciate what you've done. I get that it was beautifully illustrated, but this was a disaster. And and I don't know how to tell my friend, dude, you should have turned this into 4 books, not 6. I get that you had a publishing deal, but this book was a disaster. And this book should have been taken behind the barn and shot. You and me could have had a 6-pack together. We could have had a beautiful bottle of wine, whatever you want. But this idea needed to be taken behind the barn, the script of it, and just shot.
That's a shame.
No. And then you start new. I didn't say he needed to be shot. I said the script needed to be shot.
Oh, no, I know. I know. It's just sad when,
not everything you write is going to be good. I'm sorry.
Oh, I've written some stinkers. And I'm fortunate to have friends be honest with me.
So that's my point. But like, this is my issue with comics right now. To be honest, this is my issue, is that nobody tells somebody your book just missed, dude. I get that you put a lot of money into it. I understand that you just spent $8,000 making this happen, but or you spent $40,000, give or take, in funding this, not directly and indirect money. I get it. But this was just bad.
Right.
But that's how I feel. But I don't want to dwell on that, because I do want to talk about your trading card, because that's way more my.
I could talk about the book or the card or whatever. I wasn't trying to change the subject.
I want to talk about the card, because the card to me is actually more interesting.
Okay.
Because
for sure.
Trading cards are super hot right now. Sports cards are big. There's a whole magazine that I should have wrote down. That's the non-sports trading card magazine that comes out every other month, which is awesome. And they give free promo cards. So they just gave Richard Park cards. He does a lot of trading card stuff on Kickstarter. He has a lot of promo cards in there. And then they did the Dynamite. They had a promo card from Dynamite's Transformers of that set that just came out. And then they had something else, some Nurse Ratched thing, which is cool, like Psycho Nurse Ratched from, I forget who did that, but that was cool. But what prompted the trading card? Because that's just a hot area and a hot topic right now.
Well, like anyone else who's in indie comics, I just you gotta be creative with how you're going to build your audience and engage with your audience. And I thought it was only fitting, it was this whole comic book thing is an idea that Lisa gave me. She didn't say go forth and make a comic book, but she said, this will look really good animated. And then that led me down this path. She also obviously has her own audience. So, and, she also looks good on trading cards. So why not use your friend for all those things?
So let me ask this, because obviously, there's a lot of stuff in play here. You mentioned, obviously, she looks good on a trading card. She's in your comic book. But it's also the idea that 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, depending on when you want to count COVID and when all this stuff was in lockdown, trading cards exploded, where they were definitely, I wouldn't say dying, but they weren't as big as they are right now. And people home in the hobby got not just life put into it, but money put into it. Topps sold themselves for $500 million to Fanatics or Fanatics. When Topps sells themselves for $500 million, this is no longer a game in which the biggest trading card company in the world sold themselves for $500 million. We're no longer talking about, a bunch of guys want to relive their childhood. There's a whole new generation, and then it goes even further. So what is that like? Because you're timing something, and then you're getting an audience that obviously wants that. But then you also have the 90s and the 2000s, which are now really hot too. That's the other thing too, is that she is really from that era where all that was SNL for kids.
Yeah.
And it was, when did all that come out? Like, was it 97, 96, 97?
I was going to say maybe 95. It was definitely because there were two different casts, I believe. There were Keenan and Kel were the original cast, and then Lisa was kind of in the second wave of all that in the late 90s, 2000s.
So, but nonetheless, it's really that era where it's the
Yeah.
90s are really hot too. And so, what is that like
Hmm.
too? Because this is gonna trigger that and hit that.
Hmm.
And
Well, it all fits very neatly into who my demographic is because, like, again, you were saying the YouTube research there, and kind of we're all doing our own guerrilla research and marketing. Um, and that definitely people in their I'd say mid 20s to late 30s are generally like where my audience typically is, and that age group remembers that era and is nostalgic about that era, and so that also plays very well into building and engaging with this audience.
did you also feel that a $10 trading card position is an interesting way? Because obviously, if people want to relive that era of the 90s, early 2000s, they come across this, they know who she is, and like, cool, I don't know who RJ William is. I have no idea who this guy is. I have no idea his book, but this trading card looks interesting. And then you
Hmm.
obviously get their information, you give them updates, and then they come over and say, cool, I need to back this now. I need to check this out. And then they say, cool, I like this, but I'm not much of a comic guy, but I like her. I like this concept. I like this trading card. It's a nice little thing. It's $10. It's not going to break me if I hate this or if I never ever come back, or it's just a fun item, right?
Hmm.
And then you can update them, and then they now have a connection to you in
Hmm.
that regard. And they also have a paid connection, which is different than a earned connection or
Hmm.
a social media connection. So like, because that's where this is interesting, I think, is that you have a whole trading card side of this, but you also have the idea that, hey, you're getting somebody into your system,
Hmm. Yeah.
into that.
So yeah, basically, I just want to get people engaged. Like you were talking about funnels with like exits, exit paths to other places. Um, that's kind of sort of what I'm trying to do with the trading card and like get them into the universe that I built where the comic book takes place. So hopefully they back the comic book. I want people to become fans and engage in whatever avenue would interest them. So, for example, other than the trading card collectible, pretty soon I'm hoping to launch an F-26 Aerostar collectible, and that's the fighter jet you saw me hold up earlier on the comic book page. I have a 3D printed version that my cat's made a toy of, so if the wing's a little damaged there. And then I got a couple other versions I printed or I painted. So this one I like just painted. I went to the Warhammer store, learned how to paint these. I'm perfecting it, and when I do get better at it, I'll put up several tiers because I know some people would like to paint them on their own. I'll paint some myself that are actually
But let me ask
quality.
this. Sorry to interrupt. Let me ask this,
Uh,
because you obviously have the trading card,
mhm,
and I think you have to get creative now in comics.
mhm,
So I think that at this stage in the game, you have to get creative on what type of campaigns you want to run. And I also think that, and I don't know if it's been coined yet, but I also think there's a concept called micro campaigns,
mm,
because I view your trading card as a $10 trading card, 25 autograph, and I would have just left it at that, right? And then
mhm,
all of a sudden you release your book, and then in between releasing books, if you're doing different trading cards that are related to this or in still the same vein of all that or something similar, all of a sudden you might have micro content and micro campaigns, and it
mhm,
very well be a whole subsidized business of your comic book stuff and everything you're doing to some degree. And so, what is that like too? Because somebody might say, look, I don't necessarily want to go and we said, I'll buy your book for $25 and you're going to release it every 6 months, but I still want to support you in what you're doing.
mhm,
And so, like, but also it keeps interest, right? Because if you release a trading card every 3 months, and you're doing 10 and like 25 autograph for it, and then you're releasing your book every 6 months, you're still keeping interest with your audience, and
mhm,
you're still selling a product, and you can still remind them, hey, the book's coming out in 5 months from now. Because I think that's also part of the issue, is that you got to remind me of when
mhm.
your project is, because I can't tell you how many projects I missed on crowdfunders because there's so much stuff and nobody's talking to me, and
Yeah.
things get lost in the shuffle. So, I mean, I'm curious about that because I'm looking at your trading card very different than other people. I'm looking at
Mm.
as a reminder and also relevance.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the intention. Same with the Substack because that's just not only is it a landing page where I could build a mailing list, but it's a way to engage with people. Substack just lends itself to that. I write an article about something I find interesting, an update on the book, an update on the card, an update on the miniature. I had one guy specifically request a patch for the alphas that he could like put onto a bag or something or a jacket. And I thought that's a great idea. Maybe I'll do that at some point. But it's all about just getting people's interest and then engaging with them. Like you were saying, this trading card, it's also a reminder. The Substack, it's a reminder of what's going on. It's updates.
So to even go further into this though, because obviously, given that it's all that and who she is and everything that she's done, I mean, it's only at like $90, which is a little shocking. I mean, because to me, like, and so what is that like too? Because to me, it seems that something's not hitting, and I'm going to call it out what it is. I'm going to tell you exactly what it looks like. Is I look at this, and I'm like, this is really kind of cool. If you're a '90s person, this is right up that alley of '90s memorabilia that's relatively cheap for $10 to get a trading card. It's not like it's that expensive. It's not over the top. It's not like you're buying, a signed album from Premier Collectibles for $300 from like something that was produced in the '90s. And so, like, what is that like? Or do you just feel that, hey, I'm not promoting this necessarily too hard, and I'm just going to see where it goes because I'm not too concerned? But like, what? Because like I'm looking at this campaign, I'm like, it's simple, and I get it immediately, right? Like, this is why I'm so perplexed. Is that this should to me be doing better, and like
Yeah,
I'm perplexed, and I don't understand why.
I think I could confidently say it's probably just due to lack of promotion and lack of eyes seeing it. Like on Twitter, I probably had the same 10 or 20 people see it a lot. I couldn't tell you exactly how many have seen these posts because I share them in groups. Get on live streams, try and promote it, trying to get out there, get noticed.
This is why I don't like groups, right? This is why I
Yeah,
don't like groups.
exactly.
Groups are not effective.
But yeah, no, I don't have a huge presence, and I'm trying to get out there as much as I can. And I know Lisa's like made like one reshare post about it on Instagram, which she's super busy. I'm not dogging on Lisa for that, but I know she's got like a very full plate, and this is like a friend helping me out. It's not like she's doing a commercial for me or something. So I could probably say it's just due to lack of eyes, lack of views, noticing it.
Because to me, it should sell itself, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is my whole thing about eBay. And to bring it back to me for 2 seconds, because I think it'll further go back to you, is that my products sell themselves. When I'm selling a Caitlin Clark, I don't need to market it, and that's the point of the business. Is that I want products that I need to market, and I want products that I don't, and I'm figuring out, and I'm doing it a lot better. It took me a long time to figure out how to do that. But, again, a Caitlin Clark will sell itself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't mind making less money on a product that sells itself and sells itself quickly because it's just cash flow. And to me, this should sell itself. And it just needs to be in the right place, which is really the '90s group. That's really where it needs to be.
In a 90s group.
That's
an idea I actually haven't thought of. Maybe on Facebook, I need to find more 90s people.
I mean, there was a whole con in Connecticut called 90s Con.
Yeah, there you go.
So these things exist.
I need to hire you as a marketer is what I need to do.
Well, I'm not that good. I'm not that good at anything. I just have ideas, and I'm lazy. So anytime somebody can do something for me and market something for me, hence why I like to interview people, because usually when you interview somebody, you're going to get traction, and I can use their name to further mine, and then I'm furthering theirs, and it's beautiful, and it works. It's very helpful. It's easier to use a celebrity to grow your own presence. Right. But it's an even exchange. It's an even exchange. I'm giving the person media, and they're giving me their credibility and their name, and everybody wins. and I cut up micro. Enough's enough about that. But anyway, but no, because I find this whole thing interesting. But again, this is why I bring this up, because I'm looking at it, and it's tricky because crowdfunding right now, I think, is really, really complicated.
Mm-hmm. It is.
I look at Kickstarters, I look at other people in this space, and I'm like, I don't think you guys are doing that great. And also, things are really, really expensive right now.
Mm-hmm.
Print books is expensive. Artists have gotten more expensive. Covers have gotten more expensive. Um, I don't know what shipping has gotten more expensive. I mean, you could laugh at me when I tell you this. To ship a card 2 months ago was 64 cents. To ship a card today, um, I'll show the dimension of the card. To ship a card like this in a standard envelope is 69 cents. Now, before anybody gives me shit for that, let me explain. When you're shipping 400 cards in a month, 5 cents adds up really, really, really fast. So
Mm-hmm.
that's my point, is that, and that's a thing, shipping a book like this, which is a comic book, which is my next guest at 9 o'clock. He did this book.
Mm-hmm.
That has gone up by $1. So, I mean, I'm curious how you feel about all this, because that's why it's so interesting. Because I look at Fund My Comic, I look at Kickstarter, I look at Zoop, I look at Indiegogo, and I look at all these platforms, and I'm like, nobody's doing great right now. I feel nobody's doing good collectively.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on what your metric is. Like
Let me rephrase. Sorry to cut you off. 2.5 years ago, a lot of people were funding $5,000 campaigns in a week.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're funding that in 10 days.
Mm-hmm.
So it's taking 3 more days, or it's taking 2 weeks and not 1 week, which means that, yeah, you reach your goal, and that's good. And if you built in 20% over what you needed, you're doing great and you funded. But what if it takes you 3 weeks to fund? So now you were doing 10 grand in 1 week, and then you were getting another 4, 5, 6 grand because you had forward motion, but now you have less of a leash to do it because you only have 2 weeks to carry that forward motion out.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of everything else, things are more expensive, printing's more money, which technically means that if you're funding in less time, or it takes you more time to fund, depending on how you want to look at it, and you have less time to get over, then you're not doing it. I mean, that's a valuable and fair metric. If you fund in 3 days and now you're funding in 5, that means that your funding metric has gone down by 40%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and that is obviously significant. So like Luke likes to say, like a successful comic book campaign is one that funds.
No, Luke said a different thing. Luke said something very different. He said a successful comic campaign is not one that funds, but one that delivers.
I mean, I think he's talking about story, probably not.
Luke said that on my show, and the reason why I say this is that, and he's 100% right. He said a successful campaign is one that just doesn't fund, but also delivers you your book to customer. A campaign is not successful until every customer has what they got and what they pledged for.
Well, yeah, of course, it's got to go on both ends. The customer needs their book. It's got to be delivered. It shouldn't be late. They've got to be happy customers. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying on the end of the person running the campaign, I think the metric of success should be a book that funds. So you're in the black. You're ready to go for the next campaign. How much you make? Did I make $5,000 in a week, or did I make $5,000 in 10 days? Did I make $20,000? I say, like, especially if you don't have huge name recognition, don't worry about that. The bigger guys are worried about that. And if you're successful over enough time, that'll come. But I have a low bar. I need to get to 6K and then I'm funded. If I make 7K, I'll be happy.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess I'm in a different world, right? Because I know my numbers, right, in my business. I know that So I just sold a $200 card, and I
Mm-hmm.
sold it for 375. I know exactly how much where my break even point was on a $250 card after paying taxes. Not even taxes calculated. Um, pay paying shipping and eBay's fees and shipping materials. It's about $50, give or take, and that gives me about $10 of wiggle room.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a 25% position. eBay takes 13% of that. The other 12% is everything else that is necessary. So
Mm-hmm.
the break even point on a $200 card is 250.
Mm-hmm.
So when somebody offers me 275, I can't take 275, and I politely explain to somebody, "Hey, look, the margins are razor thin." On
Mm-hmm.
275, I would make about $15. At
Mm-hmm.
375, I make more like 110.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if somebody offered me 350, I would take it, right? I mean, I'm gonna fight tooth and nail to get as much as I can. But again, the objective is to get in and out and become profitable. So I'm not
Mm-hmm.
knocking profitability. So if your bottom line is 4,500 and you need five and you get the five, you're technically successful. But the
Mm-hmm.
real question is that what did it cost you? Also,
Mm-hmm.
how stressful was it? And
Mm-hmm.
is this the best way to do it? And
Mm-hmm.
where I think this gets really interesting is that if so obviously the first thing is I agree with you is to get to your 6K, whatever you need to get to. But also, I mean, the other thing about this is that is your objective also to say, look, I want to get to six on the first one, then keep going, and I got four in the series, and as I progressively grow, I'll make more and more money. And that if I assume slight debt in the first one or lose money on the first one, the objective is that you make money on the trade.
Yeah. I think that is more or less the goal. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not in crowdfunding to make money. I'm in crowdfunding to sell art and build an audience that makes money over time if you have enough customers, just by the virtue of capitalism. If you got enough people buying your product and it's gaining popularity. Um, did you freeze there? Okay, I
Oh
see
no,
you
no,
moving
I didn't freeze.
now.
I was just staying still for a sec.
But yeah, my goal is to if I get into black, if I make 6K, I'll be happy. Everything else is just chili on the fries at that point. But yeah, I would like to keep making more stories and have this to be a self-sustaining thing.
So I had this discussion with somebody, and I made a recommendation to them, and I'm curious what you think of it. So obviously we were speaking on my business, and this will relate back, is that I run an eBay business and I siphon my profits out into dividend producing assets. And ideally, what I'm eventually going to build is I'm going to build a holding company. So essentially, my eBay and the way I run my eBay business is that I buy assets and they're holdings, and then I sell those holdings, and then my eBay business pays me a distribution out of something that is a healthy distribution. So on that Francisco Lindor card, 110, I might take $40 out and, set some money aside for taxes out of that 70, set aside money for retained earnings, obviously potentially just keep some money in case of an emergency, but then I might take $40 and buy a stock. So, I mean, one of the things that I was saying to somebody is that maybe you should run your comic business like a holding company,
Mm,
meaning that you create an LLC holding company. It holds the IP and the positions. It doesn't necessarily need to make money today, but if the whole holding company, you have 10 IPs in there, are making money, you then can take a distribution. And it doesn't matter if property A is profitable, it matters if the whole property and everything inside the holding is. And this
yeah.
is something that I think that people in comics don't get. And so the
Uh,
reason why I'm bringing it up is that seems like a much better business model than what everybody's doing right now in comics.
yeah. I know a few people are doing that. I'm doing that actually. Yeah. My LLC is called Orion Press after my main character. Um, and that is more or less the plan. Like I said, this comic book, it takes place in the whole universe that I built. I call it the Diaspora universe, and I hope one day that becomes an IP that people follow and recognize. probably won't be George Lucas. Who knows? But that's the idea.
Because I think that's the issue, and I think it's the
Mm,
thing that's not spoken about in comics is how
mm,
do you set it up, and also what's in your holding company. Is this trading card in the holding company? Because to be quite honest, I mean, I don't know how many you're printing of them, and obviously this is a picture of it for those who don't, and this is her. This is what she looks like. And I don't know if there's anything that I missed on the campaign, but that's the campaign.
mm-hmm,
But I mean, again, all of a sudden, I don't know how many of these you're printing. I don't know how
mm-hmm,
limited it is. But that's the
mm-hmm.
other thing too, is that again, if you have 300 that you're going to print, I mean, that also creates a whole different dynamic too, because this could also be very different at a con versus online.
Mm-hmm.
Because trading cards at a convention, and I don't know if you've ever been to a sports trading card convention, but it's a very different environment. The way people's faces are when they're opening up packs, and you could see just pure joy when people are buying trading cards and Pokemon cards and like sports cards.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing like it in person, because trading cards are a very in-person thing.
Yeah, they totally are. Sorry, what was the question?
Oh no!
uh,
I was asking, is that how many are you printing of this card? Because that's the other thing too, is that you're right now running it on Fund My Comic, but it
mm-hmm,
could very well be that Fund My Comic isn't the right place for this. It could very well
mm-hmm,
be that crowdfunding isn't the right place for this card, and it's not
mm-hmm.
because there's anything wrong with the card. It could very well be that it is a in-person product. So I'll give you an example in
Okay, that's
comics.
what you're saying.
Kids comics don't do well on crowdfunding.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Sometimes a child's comic book kills at a con.
Mm.
I have a friend who has sold out of a lot of his comic books and his kid-friendly comic books at conventions. His mom or dad brings him. They're enjoying their thing. They get their adult book, and then little Jimmy comes across it and is like, "Oh my god, I love this book!" And it's $10.
Mm-hmm.
Little Jimmy has something that's appropriate for him. And mom and dad feel guilty because there was nothing there for him.
Mm-hmm.
So they're willing to spend any amount of money because they want him to have something too. And then he reads it and it's great.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I mean, a con might be good. I know Lisa does cons sometimes. Like I said, this is kind of a friend helping me out. This is not, but I'm not. It's still early days in marketing. I think how long has it been? Maybe a month now. The campaign. It says like 100 in the first 120 days. It hasn't been. I could tell you with full certainty it hasn't been 120 days. I'm not sure why. I think Fund My Comic just automatically says that. It probably has its own benchmarks. But yeah, it is an in-person thing. And that's probably on me. I didn't go out and do more like hitting the pavement, knocking down doors kind of thing, where the customers are.
So let me ask this, because how many are going to be printed on this? Because that's the other thing too, because I love exclusivity.
Mm-hmm.
This is a good example, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is only 23 of this card in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So this
it's not going to be that exclusive.
I get it. I'm not saying make 23 of them, right?
Yeah.
What I'm getting at though is that is there going to be 100? It's going to be 200. It's going to be 500, because at a certain point, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like trading cards and I like unique things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mind having a print run of like a 10,000 trading card, but
Mm-hmm.
I also like knowing that there's only 500 of these in the world, and
Mm-hmm.
they're all sold out because I'm a buyer, I'm a seller, and I like to know that there's value in my collection.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because if I know there's no need for me to buy this today, then I'm not going to go buy it. You know what I mean? But like if I know there's only 300 these produced, and I know there's only 50 autographs,
Mm-hmm.
I might snag one of those really quickly because they might get sold out, and then also I'm like, fuck, I didn't get that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's on eBay, and you're like, oh shit, it's a $200 card on eBay. Like, what the fuck?
Right. Yeah. So you're onto what the purpose of the card is. It's to provide an avenue to get people interested in the book. and to get people engaged and engage with them as potential backers. So that's why the plan is to fund until we launch. That's why on the campaign there's an option to pre-order the book with your card. It just allows you to what's encouraging to me, it's only 2 people that have backed. What's encouraging to me with the limited marketing and the people who have backed it are also ordering the book. So that tells me people are actually interested in the book. And then when the book does launch, when we have enough engagement, the card stops printing, and then you got a limited edition card. So it sort of depends on the backers, because the faster they back it, the faster we launch, and then the sooner it goes away. So it almost doesn't matter, because the card gains popularity up until launch date. The IP gains popularity, and no matter what, it's going to be pretty limited based on what it is. So does that answer the question?
No. I get it. I get it. So how big is the card? Because
it's 8x5.
8x5.
It's bigger than most trading cards, I think.
So it's a little bit bigger?
Yeah. Like, I got other trading cards. They're pretty small. I think the one you held up was pretty small. Well, you're being facetious. Yeah, it's pretty large. Yeah, exactly. It's not a baseball card. It's something I want people to be able to, like, hold up, put up on a shelf and look at,
Oh man, see, I like putting cards in my binder. That's the problem. I'm a binder pop culture guy. Like I love putting cards in my binder, and that's my whole thing. Is that because there's nothing that gives me more satisfaction when you have somebody over who's like a baseball, and you just start going through your binder, like, oh my god, you have that one and that one and that one, and like it's a weird thing when somebody's like, oh yeah, I'm a big card collector. I'm like, holy shit, you got that card? What the fuck, man? Can I buy it from you? Like
yeah.
But again, I'm a big card collector, so I will eventually back your campaign. I just have to wait till my next payday. Because I spent a lot of money just recently. Hey, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. It's Ohtani's fault. He just had to hit 50-50 this season. Oh my God. Just the amount of money that Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani have made me spend this year is off the chain. The two of them, it's a little north of 5K.
I think funny. Pops is in the comments here.
Yeah, no. I saw him.
How's it going, Pops?
But yeah. So that's that. But yeah. So obviously, I mean, it's kind of crazy. So obviously, it's all that. It's the 90s, and yeah, no, I like it. I like the campaign. I think the campaign is really, really interesting, and I'm a little shocked that it's only at 90 because it's like the 90s. So like the 90s are hot.
Yeah.
Just join a 90s group and just pop it right in, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. I think that's what I'm gonna have to do. Maybe hit up the comic book shops and find the 90s groups, all that stuff. It's hard, man. It's a hustle when it's a hobby and you got a full-time job.
I get it. I work a day job and I'm running my eBay business and I do this, and Monday, Thursday, and Sunday night football don't help.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Just I get it. In which there's only so much that we can do. But I do want to back out of this. Obviously, for those who want to buy it, this is what it looks like, and this is what she looks like, and then this is another shot of it that's cool in that regard. But I do, and I am curious where you see the industry going in pop culture, comics, because there's a lot that's going on. We are entering October. We are actually in October, second day of October, but where do you see comics going? Because supposedly October is a big crowdfunding month. And it's also interesting because COVID, I feel like the COVID effect of money has worn off. A good friend of mine said that me and him have a slightly different opinion. He thinks that there's going to be less money, and there's less money going around right now because there's a lot of political donating going on both sides. also, I have a different theory than he does, where I think there's election fear going on.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know where it's going to go. People might have their thoughts. We don't have to talk about that. I don't know your politics, and you don't know mine, and I don't want to ruin a good time. Um, I understand that people may or may not agree, and even if we both agree on the same thing, we're going to piss somebody off. So we're not going to go down
Yeah.
that. I think that there is election fear, and
Mm-hmm.
people are holding on to money. People are also being penny pinching. I think there's inflation. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think that that's a political issue. My orange juice is more expensive when I go to Target now.
Inflation's not a political issue.
Inflation is a fact in our economy right now. Versus meaning that things are more expensive than they were 4 years ago. I didn't say.
I say that. I think that's political though.
I mean, I'm gonna walk away. My point I'm making is that when all of a sudden your food is more expensive, you have less money for leisure.
Exactly.
And that's where I'm going with this. I'm not trying to make this a political issue here.
Oh, I know. I'm following you. I'm just teasing.
I'm clearly not. I think this is a political issue here. But my point is that things are more expensive than they were for basic items. And I know because I was just in Target and my grocery bill was like $10 more. Then I was like, oh snap, and I was paying attention. And money's a little tight in my life right now till my next paycheck, and I'm like, okay, I now understand what this means. So that's my point is that. So again, that's what I think is going on with a lot of Kickstarters and issues and pop culture. And I think people are having to choose what they want. But I also think there's something else going on too, where I think that bars are open. I think concerts are open. Monster Jam is back in my neighborhood. In a few weeks, I may or may not be going. I mean, have you seen a monster truck go on side to a donut? It's awesome, everybody. They fill up an arena where the 3 nights before Monster Jam, they're playing hockey and with dirt, and then a monster truck is doing like a backflip. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. But again, if I could choose to go to New York Comic Con or go to Monster Jam. One of those is going to be a lot more fun than the other. I guarantee you. And it's not New York Comic Con. Monster Jam will destroy New York Comic Con any day of the week. And if anybody would like to debate me on that, I'll take you to Monster Jam, and you'll understand why.
I've been to Monster Jam. It's pretty awesome. I get where you're coming from there.
But anyhow, I'm curious what you think, because I think there's more choice. I think things are more expensive. I also think that there's cheaper options to have a really, really good time in life. And I think that the COVID boost in comics has slightly worn off, if completely off. But I also think there's also a lot of product in comics right now, and that doesn't help. That doesn't help. I mean, there's legitimately 6 campaigns that are all the same right now on Kickstarter.
I mean, you got to be different. Like, yeah. So, I guess a few things. I'll go down the line in my head here. I agree with you. I think there is election fear. I think people are penny pitching. I think inflation is a thing.
Monster Jam is great.
Monster Jam is great. I mean, without going too much into the inflation, it's obviously a fact of life. It's there. I think people are worried that it might get worse based on who wins. I think that's part of election uncertainty, why people don't spend money in an election or during election season. I think people are going to want to see where things go.
There's another thing too. There's another thing that I didn't mention where Christmas season has started.
Yeah.
I think people forget that Christmas season starts now, kind of middle of September. Halloween's fun, Thanksgiving's fun, but those aren't expensive holidays, all things considering. A bag, your 6 bags of candy and your kid's Halloween costume should cost you $100 at the most. I'm not saying $100 is if you are struggling with money, $100 could be a huge thing for you, but $100 is not the problem. Halloween's not the problem. Thanksgiving's not the problem. But Christmas right now, people start gearing up for Christmas, start saving up money, start saying, cool, I want to, go buy my kids $400 worth of gifts. Okay, I need to start figuring out, making sure I got money to cover that, or I got to start buying those gifts now. Sorry for interrupting, but
no, that's exactly it, and that's another tricky thing about this season. That people are really just holding on to money right now. Will that have a long-term effect on the industry? I think it depends on how the economy goes in the long run. I mean, every election season is like this. Every holiday season is like this. So that doesn't make this time unique. But long term, where indie comics go, or just comic books in general go, I think depends on largely on the economy, like any other business.
I mean, I think again, I think we have been long overdue. So the United States typically goes on bull runs for anywhere from 7 to 8 years. We have 2.5 years of cooling off, and then we go on another bull run. It's the reason why if you look at an S&P 500 chart, it goes up and it's going up. My 401k looks like that. It's an S&P Admiral Share Vanguard fund. And it just looks like a roller coaster where it goes up, goes slightly down, then it goes higher, and it's beautiful. But I'm longing it, right? So I think, and this is just my take as somebody who's been through this. I went through where my portfolio fell by 45%. And I bought more, and I made a lot more money on the upside. I was waiting for that fall, and I'm waiting for the next one. Because if you wait for the fall and then you buy it in at the bottom, you can only go up. America is not failing, everybody. I guarantee you that. But that's a different podcast completely. But I do think, and my position is that I think that it's going to be a rough year, regardless of who's in the White House. I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters. I don't. I think it's going to be a rough year. I think it's going to be rough, and I think we just got to bottom out the cycle. And I think the best thing that could happen is let the economy do what the economy's got to do. And the less people start trying to control the economy, it will naturally, capitalism always figures it out. And it's like water, because money is like water. It finds the easiest, fastest, cheapest way to move into where it wants to go. And guess what? That's what I think. So I think that if you hold on, just grab a life raft and hold on and ride the wave.
Yeah, I agree. I think got to ride out the season, and things will get better. So, on that note, I think that's a good thing for indie comics and just the whole industry of comic books.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree, and that's what I think. But I'm always curious what other people think, because I view it as a macroeconomist and as a person who carries and buys a lot of collectibles, and I got a feeling. It's just my take in my business and what I have in my inventory in my store with certain cards and certain things. That right now they're not moving. And but what am I doing? I'm going to raise up my prices, because when the economy gets better, people are going to want it, and people are going to spend the money for it. And that's what I think. And so I honestly think if you have rare books, or you have like a limited 10 and you have 5 of them left and they're not moving, I think in 3 months, if you're an indie comic person, you should raise up your prices. I don't think you should lower your prices. I think you should raise up your prices. If you can handle the debt, you should raise up your prices.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. The part of what makes indies great is how limited they are. And on that note too, like having a product that's unique. I mean, not to knock anyone in particular, but you go on and like there's obviously genres that are more popular than the others, and I guess that helps them get backed, but it doesn't necessarily help someone stand out.
We could look at this from just a television position, right? So I'm trying to think of a show that seems like every other show, right? Look at an anime position. You can look at an isekai, right? There's 20 isekais that all look the same. They're all enjoyable to watch. I enjoy watching them because I know the rules of the show, and I know show A, B, C, and D relatively are the same, right? But I know what I'm getting into, and I'm watching it because they're the same, right? But sometimes you want to watch something that is completely different. So I'm trying to think of something that Breaking Bad is a good example, right? There are very few things that are similar to Breaking Bad.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
So what'd you say?
Totally. I agree. Yeah.
So again, that's why Breaking Bad was so popular, and it was arguably one of the most perfect shows ever created.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also so different on everything, and the philosophy and the thought process in that was off the chain.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my point about Breaking Bad. But like you get a show like Naruto, there's a lot of shows that are similar to Naruto. But that doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that there's a lot of stuff. The only reason why Naruto stands out is that it was one of the first, and it's big and it's massive and it has such a following that it's impossible for the thing to just die.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. But
Yeah.
I don't disagree. But obviously, we've been speaking for a while, over an hour, and I do want to give you a chance to promote yourself. So where could people find you, bother you, hit you up, back the campaign, check out what you're doing? Your call sign, baby on board. We could do Top Gun. We could do Top Gun all day. We could buzz the tower.
My call sign would have to be Orion. I mean, I'm honestly into that kind of thing. Call sign Orion's my book. You could back the trade card campaign on fundmycomic.com. Can I drop a link in the comments here to?
It's actually in the description.
Oh, perfect.
I'm a professional.
You are a professional. What am I doing? So link in the description. That's where you can find the campaign on Fund My Comic. You can also find me on Substack, RJ William. Go and subscribe to my Substack, and you will get a free pop socket. It looks like this here. All you got to do is reply to the email with your mailing address so I know where to send it. You get a nice, shiny, original Orion pop socket there. That's his first iteration, so that's kind of a limited edition image. And when I launch this comic book, this cool stuff's going to go away. Pop sockets, trade card, it'll just be book. And then you'll have something that no one else has. You got something limited edition. If you want to go a little bigger, go for the signed trade card. And you got something limited edition special. Maybe pre-order the book. Go check it out.
And then, obviously, I'm just going to keep saying that you got to support people. You want to see what their stuff gets made or their stuff getting made. You have to go out and support them. You have to go, obviously, back their campaigns is one of the ways to do it. Follow them on social media. They got a Substack. They have a YouTube channel, all that stuff. It makes a big difference. Also, just liking somebody's post on X, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, it helps too. It really does. Leaving a comment helps. Sending somebody a direct message if their direct messages are open, all that stuff is really cool. So that helps as well. And there's been plenty of people who said, hey, I really enjoyed your interview, and that sometimes is just as helpful, if not more helpful, because you never know who's having a rough day or just needs, hey, really enjoyed what you did. I really appreciate you did such a thing, right? That interview made my day. Like I've had people email me on interviews. They're like, oh man, you interviewed Brian Donovan, who plays Rock Lee from Naruto. Oh, I love this character. This made my whole week, man. So and it goes a long way because it makes people need to feel appreciated. It is all I'm going with on that. And then as far as I'm concerned, obviously I have Pop Anime Comics, which is Twitter/X, Pop Anime Comics on Instagram, Pop Anime Comics on the Facebook, Pop Anime Comics on TikTok, Pop Anime Comics on YouTube. Obviously, I got a lot of content. I got 1,600 videos on YouTube. A lot of content, really cool stuff, all that fun stuff. And then I got some other stuff as well. And then I also have this right here, which is my eBay store. And so I got that. Look for comics and collectibles. Come shop with us on eBay. And then, obviously we got that. And then I was going to state one more thing. And I also have my nice, and then I sell some other stuff also. This is a card I sell. This is cards I sell. This is cards I sell. And then I sell a lot of cool stuff like this as well, which is a base relic. And I do sell cool stuff like this. And I have all 15 of those. So if you want one of those in foil, I got you covered. And then we are on the farewell tour. So I do have these available, which are my John Cena cards. And people are reporting that they can't see them. So it's an odd thing. I don't know why. I just don't get it. I don't understand why people can't see it. I just don't get it. It's odd to me, but hey, you do you. And then, obviously I do have a Cash App. This is my Cash App. Give me $1. So it's appreciated. I appreciate everybody who gives me $1 because, well, independent media is really hard to run, and every dollar helps to keep this free and active and moving forward. It is not a requirement. Obviously, it is appreciated, but more importantly, and I get it, money's tough, everybody. So if you can't afford it, don't worry about it. I got you covered. But if you can and you want to see and continue to see what I do and go forward, just give me $1 because monetization sucks on platforms as well as a bunch of other stuff. But if you can't give me $1, check me out on all my social media. And I think we're going to play a trailer. So hopefully we could do something like this.
So yeah, that's the trailer you'll see on Substack. Yeah, subscribe to my Substack. Check it out. Am I muted? I think you're muted.
I'm muted. My bad. It happens. I forget. But anyhow, what else do you have to promote, or is the Substack it and everything else we got?
Yeah, subscribe to my Substack. If you're into trade cards, check out my campaign.
Well, I don't think I could have said that any better myself, and I don't think I could have ended that any better myself, everybody. And I believe that is a wrap.